What's going on, internet? Back with some more MTG videos for you. I've basically been playing Magic all afternoon with this deck in particular, and thought it'd be neat to do a little deck tech before we go on and change the deck completely again, or Theros comes out and gives me a lot more cards to play with for this particular deck, which is Blue-White Merfolk. There's a lot of mono-blue Merfolk decks out there, but I'm pretty confident that the blue-white one gives it a bit more of an edge. Certainly against control matchups, and gives you a bit more removal against aggro. And another goal was I really wanted to have a digital version of a physical deck that I have, and this is pretty much on par with the Merfolk deck that I've used in the past for Modern. So let's just go through the card picks really quickly, and then I'll talk about some of the changes I might make to it in the future. So blue-white dual lands, all the ones that come into play untapped at the start of the game most of the time. So 4 Hallowed Fountain, 4 Seachrome Coast, and 4 Wanderwine Hub, specifically from Merfolk. All good stuff. I didn't play Glacial Fortress because it would be really sucky if it came in to play tapped at the start of the game. And for what this deck needs to accomplish, I really need that untapped mana at the start. 3 Mutavault, not 4. I might try 4 at one point, but I think 3 is alright as it is for generating colorless mana in a 2-color deck that's so quite intensive. Although the colorless one doesn't really get in the way, there's plenty in the deck that just uses colorless mana, so you'll see some of them later on. Just all around good card for any type of creature deck. And then we've got a single plains and 5 islands. Just really there because basic lands are still good, and I run into lots of other Path to Exiles out there, and it's good if I have a land to pull out because of that. On the rest of the deck, Aether Vial is clutch in any Merfolk deck, I think. Basically, having the Aether Vial pump out your creatures while having the rest of your mana open for combat tricks and counter spells and removal, all that business, is really useful. Being able to play a creature at instant speed is really useful as well. You'll notice as well that most of the Merfolk in the deck are at 2 mana, apart from Merrow Reejerey down here. And that was just so I could sit the Aether Vial at 2 and just keep on pumping out dudes. Obviously this isn't so amazing when you're playing in a format with like engineered explosives, which I've played up against before, and that's not fun. But you can find ways to play around that card. Basically, when it comes to master removal, you just don't ever overextend or extend too much. You got some solid Merfolk in there that can just sort of sit there and be mean for a while. So it's not a big deal. Anyway, what was I saying? Aether Vial, yeah, good card, really good. Drop it on turn 1, pump up as 2, pump out dudes after that. Good stuff. Mana Tithe, sort of mini mana leak in white for some reason. I really like it. In the main deck, because it's just early turn removal. That's where the deck really functions. If you can rush out really fast, Mana Tithe on turn 1 or turn 2 is really neat because it just stops a lot of really fast decks for putting out stuff. So like Mana Dork, get rid of it. Early removal, get rid of it. Also good for combo decks as well, of course, who tend to just tap into all their mana as fast as possible to get out their combo. Not so relevant towards the late game, of course, but that's the same deal with Mana Leak. It's alright, if you find that... I never find myself siding out them all, because they're still kind of useful against everything. Path to Exile, standard removal for any white aggro deck, I think. Or any white deck in general in Modern. It's just amazing. And on to the Merfolk. Sejiri Merfolk, because why wouldn't you if you're playing a white-blue Merfolk deck? First Strike's great against aggro, Lifelink's great against aggro. Also against some control decks as well. 2/1's maybe not so great, but plenty of lords in here to buff them up a bit. Silvergill Adept at 3, not 4. 4 is a bit too clunky, as I've experienced in the past. Planar for 5 isn't so great either, but just in a general cantrippy deck, I've tried to fix in as many cantrips as I can, just to keep the deck rolling. Coralhelm Commander at 4 is staple in any Merfolk deck, in any color, I would say. Just a really solid creature. Better against control than aggro, I think. Being able to level him up and just get in with his evasion, level him up to max for his Lord ability. Really good. Master of the Pearl Trident, better Lord of Atlantis. Though I might run some Lord of Atlantis in here as well if the need be. Just solid Lord guy. Standard 4 off and any Merfolk deck for sure. Now we're going to get a bit weird. 2 Sygg River Guides. Just generally really solid in white-blue. That protection is really neat. Just being able to effectively counter spells or get in for some extra damage by giving one your Merfolk protection. Being able to just chump a blocker as well, really useful. The only thing he's not useful against is artifact decks, because the protection is essentially null and void at that point, so I tend to side him out fairly regularly against artifact decks. 2 Sygg River Cutthroats as well. Good against aggro. If you draw them in your open hand, that 1/3 body is really good at blocking all sorts of goblin guides all day long. His draw ability is really good as well, into sort of the mid game where you just want to refill your hand a lot, and you've got a guy out there that can just hit for 3. So I tend to play in your second main phase as well, if your opponent doesn't do anything weird during combat. It's neat having like a Sejiri Merfolk or a Silvergill Adept out, attacking with them on turn 4, along with, say, a Master of the Pearl Trident or something. And then just dropping Sygg and drawing a card at the end of turn. Like, really good creature. I really like him. Merrow Reejerey at 4, again, staple Merfolk. Really good to do crazy combos with. I wouldn't run him at 3, I've done that before, and that's not so great. The only problem with him is he doesn't get out due to Aether Vial, and paying 3 mana for him isn't so good, so I don't know, I might try and play around with doing something better with him. The tap ability is really relevant, getting 2 of these guys out and being able to play any of these other 2 mana Merfolk essentially for free. Just comboing them out, or playing one of these guys and tapping down 2 of your opponent's creatures. Really solid Merfolk. Psionic Blast is a little weird as well for most people. For most Merfolk decks. But I found I just needed like an extra bit of removal or an extra bit of damage. I've had a bunch of matches where I've gotten opponents down to like 3, 4, 5 health, and it'd just be nice just to get in there and ping them for a bunch of damage. But this is the newest addition to the deck. It might not live very long depending on what other decks I come up against. And 2 Jace Beleren for card draw. I ran him originally in my physical Merfolk deck for a long time, and he was really neat. These days he's not so powerful, but I never really use the +2. Like, just putting him down there and drawing an extra card every turn for 3 turns is really solid. And onto the sideboard real quick. I'm not so good at making sideboards, but you know, I try. This is the point in the deck where there's definitely been the most contention of me putting stuff in and taking things out. So 3 Spell Snare, because Spell Snare is just amazing in Modern. Like, pick up your Modern deck and find a 2 mana card that isn't really amazing. That I wouldn't be happy to counter with a Spell Snare. It used to be in the main deck, but I've been finding a lot recently that it's been kind of a dead draw, so putting in the sideboard in case I come up against any decks that have Bobs and Tarmogoyfs and all those nice 2 mana things that people like to spend lots of money on. 3 Disenchant, because I was having some problems against artifacts. And Disenchant just seemed to be a nice, like, not super swarmy artifacts, just, you know, play an artifact, play an artifact, play an artifact. Also having problems against enchantment decks as well. Things that would play Oblivion Rings and Detention Spheres and whatnot. And just being able to get rid of either of those 2 things is really neat. And of course, in an artifact deck, this thing is basically a Doomblade in white. So, that's good. 3 Echoing Truth, another fairly recent addition. I've been coming up against a lot of token decks recently. Specifically the token deck that uses Dumb Ritual, where you sacrifice an artifact and get 3 goblin tokens. And this thing is just sort of against that, just to get rid of a whole bunch of things at once, token-wise. And, you know, returning a null-land permanent isn't so bad. 4 Mana Leak, because why the hell not? You can side out pretty much anything in the deck and putting in a mana leak isn't such a bad thing. Mainly, like, you can take out 4 Mana Tithes even and put these in if the deck you're playing gets a bit more control-y rather than aggro. But yeah, you know, mana leak. That's mana leak. And finally, Kira, Great Glass Spinner. She was in the main deck for a very long time, but I just found that I needed space for core cards like Jace and Psionic Blast, so she's in the sideboard for now. But just like being able to counter, just protecting your dudes from all sorts of shenanigans is just really amazing. She's a bit of a target when she gets on the table as well, so having them focus her down with potentially 2 removal spells is really good. Stuff I'd like to change with the deck, or at least try out. I'd like to find space in the mana base for a couple of Celestial Colonnades, but Celestial Colonnades are really expensive on MTGO, so I might have to try that out with a paper deck. See how that goes. It'd just be nice having another man land about. Mutavault's really good, but just having another source where you can just do something with your mana when you don't have any cards in your hand, your opponent doesn't have any cards in your hand. Just being able to generate a big creature and hit to the face is really good. And also another like dual land source wouldn't be too bad. Isn't as fast as all the other land here, but that may be alright. It'd be really nice if they reprinted the blue-white fetch land, because that would definitely go in this deck for sure. I played up against a Knight tribal deck today, and it ran Elspeth. She seems like a pretty good choice. I'm not sure extensive how she is in MTGO, but certainly in paper Magic I could give her a go. I predict this deck will probably change a lot when Theros comes out. Hopefully there's going to be a ton of Merfolk in that set, akin to, say, Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, which is where a lot of this deck comes from. But until then, I'm pretty happy where it's at. Again, you know, stuff keeps coming in and out, but this is generally the build that I've gone back to. I tried out a lot of other cards in here as well. Like I tried out some of those Cypher cards from the last couple of sets, and they were alright, but the creatures didn't have enough evasion on them to consistently get that stuff off, and it took up a slot of something more useful in the deck. What else? Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command used to be in this deck for sure, but hitting triple blue by turn 4, not so handy in this deck. Certainly in the mono blue version I would definitely run Cryptic Commands. Moorland Haunt, which I've talked about, I think. Fairly dead most of the plays. Patrician Scorn and Vapor Snag I had in the sideboard. Patrician Scorn for sure, because I was coming up against a lot of enchantment decks. And that was just really great to get rid of all their stuff, but otherwise a fairly dead card in the sideboard. Vapor Snag, also really good. Kinda pseudo removal, but more akin for the mono blue deck. It works a lot better in there. Remand doesn't really fit. I would really love if Remand fitted, but you really need to get rid of their spells and not bounce them back to their hand. That Merfolk from M14, the red-green color hoser, not great. Not great at all, which I originally expected it would be fairly okay as a sideboard card, but it's just not as powerful as, say, a Fiend Hunter or a Banisher Priest, which is really what I wish the card's text would be. But you know, maybe in Theros they'll print a Merfolk Fiend Hunter. That'd be really cool. I think that pretty much does it. Like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Check out our Facebook page. We post up lots of Monster Hunter stuff there, and all the other videos that we've been putting out. Tune in next time for more me doing magic things by myself on the internet.